So many of you have potentially joined a demo with Devin or myself and thought, wow, that's a really cool, well-built studio. How do I do that? The answer is probably a lot longer than we'd like to say, so we came out with a product to make your life better, and that is the Command Studio. So in this video, we're going to talk about physical setup of the Command Studio. This is basically step one. You've unboxed it, you pulled all the toys out. Now what? Right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is look for your antennas. You might notice that those antennas have numbers on them, unless the antennas don't, in which case they can be used for the cameras. So you'll notice on the back of the battery operated cameras, whether you get 2 or 3 in your purchase, you're going to want to make sure that you connect 2 of those black antennas to the back of the cameras, and then follow the numbers to connect the control on this side. Great, so you've got your antennas plugged in. That's step one. Step two is power if you need it. Now remember, these have anywhere from 4 to 5 hours of battery life. When you're looking at connecting power, the larger power connector is going to go to your controller, and the smaller ones aptly fit to the cameras. Simple as that. So what you can see here is at the very top left, we've got our battery and then the antenna connection in the top right. Now video, 2160p, that's the quality of video. We also have what kind of audio is coming through. Is it line, is it mic? Obviously there's no line plugged into this. And then what you'll see at the bottom there is 2.0.0.9. So that's the IP address that we had assigned to this when we started playing with it. That IP address can be changed, and we're going to show you how here in just a bit. Let's talk a little bit about the physical connections on the back of the camera. On the far left here, you'll see that we have the power cable input, and then of course we have our HDMI output. So if we wanted to use this camera going out into another display, we can certainly do that. The same goes for that USB-C connection. You'll notice here we have that line in. I had mentioned it earlier. It's where the audio can be plugged in. So if you have a microphone that you'd like to plug into this camera to broadcast, you certainly can. And then of course you have your LAN connection. So if you'd like to hardline your camera back to your controller, that is where you would do it. You can also plug it into a network port as opposed to having to run it directly, or rather as opposed to having to home run this back to your controller as well. As for your microphones, they should auto-sync. They are battery operated. Please make sure to charge them.
Probably just keep it out there, and there will be an indication once these microphones are paired directly within the interface as well.
These are individually chargeable, but also you have this wonderful charging case that you can plug in via USB-C as well. Fantastic. So let's talk about different things that we can connect to make this work. Now, connecting your control device to your network physically is the next step, and this is really important. The reason being, if you are trying to send a live stream, you need to be physically connected to a network. We would do that through the LAN port back here. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is power on. On the front of the control panel is a power button. So what I'll do, just to make sure you can see this, is I'm going to hold that down until there's a light. That light is right here. The next thing we're going to do is on the cameras.
And there's going to be a button on the left-hand side And then you can see, you're going to do the same process, of course, pressing and holding until those cameras turn on. See that? That power indicator is, of course, on. Perfect.
Awesome. So the next thing we need to talk about is signal flow. And that has to do with how we're bringing different types of media in with our production. So that's where we need to start understanding ports on the back of the display. For the record, if you did see that there was an unlock password, the standard unlock password on every device is 6 zeros in a row, and then you can always change that in the menu. Keep an eye out for another video where we explain how to do that. Obviously, the cameras can be connected via IP address, and they usually come with a standard IP address of 2.0.0.8. Now, you're going to have to follow another video to see how to set those up, or follow our quick start guide, but there are physical ways to connect cameras as well. And that's what we talk about when we start looking at the back here. So there's lots of different inputs on the back here. The ones I want to focus on, first of all, are, of course, your power. The second one over here are 2 USB 3.0 ports. You can use that to export data if you're recording and would like to send that to a hard drive. You can also plug in different media to that in case you wanted to add logos, lower thirds, things like that. The next space is going to be your HDMI out 1. HDMI out 1 is going to take what is on the control screen and share it to a larger screen. So this is more of that teaching sense, right? What are they doing to make those cameras or to switch those different things up? This is basically here's what I'm touching on the control panel on a larger screen. Now HDMI out 2 is a little bit different. That one is...
That is actually going to be your PGM whenever you are, of course, showing that record screen. It's going to be the main screen that you're showing your content to. So whenever you're switching cameras, that interface is going to be shown on HDMI 2.
So PGM is basically your program, right? How am I mixing my different cameras and audio together? This is going to be that perfect stream that we're putting on, right? We're putting on that live show. That's exactly what it is. So if we're putting that into its own separate video encoder, which is kind of redundant with this device, or we are just looking to send that to another display altogether, well, that's an option. So think of it as more of maybe a large projector, if you will, in an auditorium, and you're running these cameras and you'd like to switch between those cameras. Well, you can obviously put that into a larger screen or a larger projector as well, so they have a view of what your camera choices are. So pretty straightforward. Thank you, I couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
Now, when we go down the line here, we get into HDMI out 3. There are HDMI inputs. If you need to send that input into a larger display as well, that's an option. When we get into broadcasting, we're thinking about all kinds of different signals being sent to all kinds of different screens, live streams, recording devices, etc. Sometimes there's value in a 4K image versus having it go through multiple forms of compression. So that's kind of that HDMI 3 concept there. All right, let's talk about the others. HDMI in 1 and HDMI in 2. So HDMI in 1 and HDMI in 2 are actually going to be spaces for other cameras or maybe a computer, right? So if you have a specific image or video that you'd like to tie in directly from an external device, that's what that's for. And it can actually be added as a channel, as a potential, we'll say, live or pre-recorded screen that you're cutting to. So as an example, if I'm doing a live presentation and I want to show a recording of something that we did off-site 2 days ago, but I want to make sure it's the best possible quality as opposed to me trying to hold a computer or playing a YouTube video up to the camera, which is silly, well, this is the way to do it, right? So it's another way to tie in with things like green screens, add a different background, etc. All right, let's keep going down the line. We get into our switch. So you have the ability to power over Ethernet for 1, 2, and 3. I believe the LAN connection is how you want to physically connect this device to your network. So you're able to do that live stream. Power over Ethernet refers to the potential of plugging in another camera via a Ethernet cable. right? So if I wanted to just plug into these devices physically and get that direct connection, I can do that. If I wanted to, say, pick up another 4K live stream broadcast camera, like say an RL400 made by ClearTouch, I certainly could connect to that other camera. Keep in mind, these also can handle NDI. We'll get into that later, but we have a physical way to connect extra cameras and displays via HDMI and, of course, our network. And then, of course, we have the DMIC, a line out 1, a line out 2. So if you'd like to do audio pass-through, especially if you're going into a secondary recording device, maybe an audio amplification system with this type of thing, that's another option. And you have mic in and line in as well. So you can take external audio spaces that aren't your microphones and bring them into your production. Now, there's a couple other really cool features within this microphone capability. So let's say I have this device set up and I have a limit to how long I can connect my audio, we'll say audio input from. So I don't have a computer nearby, that computer's gonna be on stage. How do I get it? Well, interestingly enough, these microphones do in fact have a 3.5 millimeter jack in the bottom. Now, it's not the same quality as a direct connection, but it is a way to connect an audio, we'll say a audio input from away from this main display. So a wireless connection, if you will. If you can imagine, there's a lot of different ways to connect audio inputs, video feeds, all through one hub, one central location, where you're then playing producer or director and deciding which of those are playing simultaneously through your live PGM or program feed. Broadcasting is a blast. It gets a little complicated with the setup, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be off to the races.